Hey team, there's a few updates to our CL5 Showfile and also in Live Professor that I want to take you through. The first update is that with the vocal processing and the inserts, now the Live Professor vocal processing is in by default, and so it's something that we will all be using for every service. And it's the same vocal processing that's been there since we started implementing it, where you are able to switch it off and on. It is now on by default. Another update in the console is that I have stolen Dave Riddell's EQ for Nathan on MC3 and stolen his dynamic EQ settings as well. And I've actually put them into the show file in the library. So if we come here to EQ, sorry about the focus with my hand getting in the way, go to library and we NB KSM9, and we do the same in the dynamic EQ, where trying to navigate it and use the phone at the same time. So that's not the setting. If we go to library, NB KSM9 recall, there we go. That's a setting, so you can recall them if Nathan's on the KSM9 and you want to use that EQ and that dynamic EQ. It sounds great for Nathan's voice on that mic. Another change is that drum bus processing now is in Live Professor. So inserts slot 9 and 10, and actually I need to make sure that is on by default in the show file, so I will actually update that before the weekend. And so coming out to Live Professor, and sorry about the dodgy phone recording, it's the only way to really quickly go backwards and forwards between devices. So we have a plugin called Waves Studioverse, and the signal comes in here. You can apply processing to the signal chain before the parallel split and after the parallel split. So it comes in, and then you have a parallel split into two signal paths. This is the primary with the main drum compression, and then here is the parallel. It says an EQ taking out some low end, and then a compressor saturator. So that is on the parallel, and then you have the blend of both signal paths, then it comes back into here, and then there's another EQ, and then there's a limiter as well. And then that gets fed back into the drum bus in the console. So that's on by default, and then the crush bus in the console is no longer in use. Something else that is a great addition to the template, and also thanks to Lockie Young for some of the work that he's done here, is the implementation of MIDI control from the console to Live Professor. You may be aware that we've been having some issues syncing the MIDI clock across the network from tracks, and so you can tap the tempo. You got the tap button here, but what we've done is we've worked it so you can assign a user-defined key. Here is 16 on the default, and when I tap 16, you see the tap tempo light up. So I'll tap, there you go. So it's receiving that tap signal. The other thing that is really useful is the use of cue lists. So open Sunday AM, it's set up with 4 songs and a tempo change action. So you can click on the song title, and in cue, you can change the song name if you want. For triggers, this controller 1 is the trigger from the CL5. As you can see, CL5 is selected as the MIDI input device. You can also trigger it from timecode. If you want to trigger it from timecode, you can go into the wiki, patch lists, the timecode page, and it will give you the timecode hour, whichever hour or half hour that each song is in as far as timecode goes. So what I've been doing, if a song starts at 6 hours in terms of its timecode position, I'll set the cue to be 6 hours and 5 seconds. So the song will start rolling 5 seconds into the count or the intro, then it will fire the cue for the next song. I have both MIDI triggers and timecode triggers enabled so that either can happen. Some of our songs don't have timecode, and so we'll need to trigger that manually. If you like, you can have the MD fire the track, and as soon as they fire the track and you see timecode rolling, which you will see here, as soon as you see timecode rolling, you just click the learn button, and then that will assign that specific timecode at the moment you click the learn button to be the cue that triggers, to be the trigger for that cue. Something else that I've added, but need to make sure that you are supremely confident in making sure that you have the right scale selected, and that you are confident in making sure that you cue each song in a timely fashion. And these are key presets for tuning. So the way that you can use them is you say if song one's in the key of C, you click and drag it across. Make sure that the green highlight goes all around song one, so it will add it as a component in the song one cue, and there it is. If you don't add it with the whole cue highlighted, it will add a new cue in between. So it's added a cue here, which we don't want. So I'll remove that cue, and I'll go back here, and I will remove that. The reason it's super important to make sure that you're really on top of it, if song one is in C and then song two is in D, those scales are different, and what will happen is the team will be singing song two and it will be tuning them to the wrong key. So the band will be in the key of D, but the tuning will be pulling them to the key of C, and it will sound pretty horrible. So these presets are there if you need them, but make sure you understand what scale is being used, and make sure that you really are on top of your cues if you're going to use that. When you're editing the playlist, you just make sure it's the cue list, make sure it's in edit mode. Show mode just looks like that, and you can't expand them. And you have to make sure that the list is armed. So that is not armed at the moment. It's armed. The reason why you need to make sure it's armed is we have a Sunday AM and a Sunday PM cue list here, and song one in both of them is set to the same trigger button in the console, and so it will fire the cue in whichever playlist is armed. So if you're finding that you're pushing the buttons on the console and nothing's happening, I'm pushing the buttons now, the cue list is not armed. So if I arm the cue list and then I go back and start pressing the buttons on the console, then it goes through the cues that I'm selecting. I'll show you how it's set up here in the key for the default scene, but you can assign them in your own key to whichever buttons that you prefer. So you go setup, user defined keys, and buttons 5, 6, 7, and 8 are cues 1, 2, 3, and 4, and button 16 is for tap. So MIDI control change 1 is assigned for song 1, control change 2 is assigned for song 2, 3 for song 3, 4 for song 4, and control change 10 is assigned for tap. So let's just say, for example, I want key 11 to cue song 1. I would tap, the menu comes up, I scroll down to MIDI, And in the middle menu, I scroll to program change and then select Control 1, because that's what's already pre-mapped in Live Professor as the command that will fire song 1. And so then if I hit 11, song 1 is queued. So I'll just remove that. Go back to no assign. There we go. So you're able to assign that however you like in your own user key, whichever buttons are most helpful for you. You can also just double click on the cue on the screen if you want, or you can double click and then type the tempo in if you like, or you can tap there, or you can tap on the console. There's a few different ways of doing it. I find the easiest way is just to spend a couple of minutes first up, just setting up your cue list, and then from there, just fire them from the console. That's all the updates so far. If you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out.